move on to the third discussion, which is welfare benefits. So I'd like to invite Michael Dietrich, who is the Welfare Advice Team Leader at Carers Manchester Contact Point, to talk about welfare benefits and what support is available for carers in this area. So I'll just introduce Michael.
Yeah, so I'm Michael. What we do basically everything in relation to welfare benefits, um, help making applications, challenging decisions, appeals. What we have not done yet is to represent people at tribunal. This didn't come up yet, but if that is needed, we can think about that. Um, Really, everything, entitlement checks for pension credit, universal credit, uh, if someone any benefit related question you can think of, and if you need help completing a form because you can't write or you don't know how to answer the questions, we can help with that. um
Brilliant. Okay. There's just so some areas of discussion. Could you give us some clarity on the messaging around welfare cuts from government at the moment? What is the current situation?
um so there are many things, moving parts at the same time. So there is one thing that is happening to universal credit in April next year, and that is for people who are limited in their capability to do work-related activities. At the moment, they get an element that is called limited capability to work-related activities element. So if you meet the criteria, you get £423 per month on top of your entitlement. From April the 6th, I believe, new claimants, that doesn't affect people now who get it already, but people who want to get that cannot get that high amount. They get a lower amount of 217 per month unless they meet special criteria. So it is still possible to get to this higher amount, but you need to meet higher criteria. So they kind of created what used to be a 3-tier system is now a 4-tier system. Um, it's so to cut it short, to people who get the right benefits now, nothing will happen. Nothing will change because everything continues for existing claimants. For people who are have health conditions and because of health conditions are limited in their capacity to work, whether they look for work or not doesn't matter. It can be carers who don't even think about working. They can still get an extra element from universal credit. And my suggestion would be to try to get it before April, so basically now, because it will be lower after April. What you need to do to get this extra element is submit fit notes from the GP to Universal Credit. This starts what is called a work capability assessment. And in this work capability assessment is decided which you will be assessed. And yeah, if it is all completed before April, you can still get the higher amount.
Right. And what about personal independence payments at the moment? Is that staying the same?
There is not, so what, that is staying the same. So there is in October, well, last month started a process called TIMS review. TIMS is the disability minister. So that's a review that's supposed to last 1 year, and by the end, by autumn next year, they come up with some new idea. The plan is to, so there are two assessments at the moment. One for what I just mentioned, the work capability assessment as part of universal credit, and then the assessment for personal independence payments. They want to make one for both of them. And of course, this will be a massive change because both things will change, but nothing is known about this. That's all behind closed doors until autumn next year.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that. Um, Another area of a topic is what's the difference between carers allowance and universal credit and the carers element with universal credit?
Hmm. So it's very simple to explain, but again, also it can be very difficult because it depends on specific situations. I try, and I actually made notes, so I'm actually reading now. So on legacy benefits, as they existed before 2018, job seekers allowance, income support, ESA, and pension credit. In order to get the carer element, all of them have a carer element. In order to get that, you needed to apply for carers allowance. The universal credit, you can get the carer element without applying for carers allowance. So you can get money for being a carer from universal credit without applying for carers allowance. But there are situations where you can be better off not applying for carers allowance, if as long as you get universal credit carer element. Without carers allowance could be better. With carers allowance doesn't make any difference. Or there can be situations where it's better to get carers allowance rather than universal credit. So the simple answer is, as if you are on if you are getting universal credit and you are a carer, make sure you're getting the carer element. If you get that, it's fine. You don't need to worry about carers allowance. If you are not entitled to universal credit because you have savings of more than £16,000, or you have a partner that has a large income, and because of that you're not entitled to universal credit, then carers allowance is your option, because carers allowance doesn't care about your partner's earnings or your savings. So it's kind of a bit depending on circumstances. But yeah, everyone who is a carer should try to get one of the two or both, depending on their circumstances.
But they're both, yeah, there's no sort of advantage with one over the other,
It
really.
can be. It's case specific. So
Okay,
most
so
people I speak with get universal credit and carers allowance, and for them it makes no difference. They can cancel their carers allowance claim, and their monthly income will be the same. Or people who get universal credit with a carer element ask me, do I need to apply for universal credit? I say you can do it, but it makes no difference to your income. It will just come. The money will end up being the same at the bottom line, but comes from two different pots. There are specific cases which um, I cannot make up right now, but there are situations where it could be better to not be on universal credit and instead go for carers allowance. Or, but the majority is, as long as you get money for being a carer from whichever of the two pots.
and if a
If you're
carer,
unsure, get advice. Contact us to get individual advice. Sorry.
that's what I was going to say actually. If a carer's confused about which one to apply for, if they contact you at the Carers Manchester contact point,
Yes.
you'll be able to give them advice
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. Of course.
Right. And can I just ask as well, when you give your benefits advice, is it just for the carer, or can you ask about the
It's
cared for as well?
basically, I ask everyone who is willing to answer my questions for all household members. So that includes people who are not even part of the cared for situation. So sometimes they have just non-dependent children living with them, and I kind of, by the way, tell them, well, they are entitled to universal credit as well. So everyone in the household, everyone who the person I speak with is prepared to provide information on,
Okay, great.
or likes to discuss.
Is there any questions in the chat, Eve?
So there's a few. Firstly, please clarify about the carers council tax discounts if my mom is on attendance allowance and I'm her carer.
Okay, so if your mom and you live together in the same house and there is nobody else, she gets attendance allowance, you provide 35 hours of care for her per week, then you can get a carer discount on council tax, and that will result in you being disregarded, and your mother gets a 25% single person discount.
Great, thank you for that. The second question is, if you get the limited capability for work-related activity, is the person entitled to the carers element still from universal credit?
Unfortunately not. There is a rule, what they call overlapping. So on legacy benefits, it was possible to get extra money for having a health condition that stops you from working, and extra money for being a carer. On universal credit, they decided to just pay the higher one. So basically, people who get the limited capability to work-related activity element do not get anything for being a carer.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And another question, how much can you earn up to as a carer before they are taxed or come off carer's allowance?
So carer's allowance has an earnings limit of £196 per week. So you can earn £196 per week and get carer's allowance on top. And carer's allowance will not is not interested in your earnings if it is 196 or less. If it is 190, basically if it is £196.10, you are not entitled to carer's allowance.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Michael. Another question. My cared for and I have a joint benefits claim. What happens if my cared for goes into care?
So assuming it will be permanent care, joint claims need to be kind of changed into single claims. So pension credit or universal credit need to be so they need to be informed that it's no longer a couple and both claims can so there will be it will be single claims and each member of the couple will be assessed individually and a decision will be made based on their individual savings and income if they are entitled to it, pension credit, universal credit, for both of them as individuals. But they cannot continue as a joint claim.
Similarly, if me and my cared for owned a house together, would I have to sell my home if my cared for went into care?
Again, I'm assuming that the person still lives there. So if you stay there, what used to be your family home, if you still live there, your partner goes to a care home, the value of the property is disregarded because as long as you still live there and it's your main home. If you move out, if that is not your main home, then it basically is. So if it is jointly owned, 50% of the value of the house will be capital of the person in the care home, and the financial assessment will look at that and possibly, yeah, that it could be that money will be asked to pay for the care fees.
Okay, thank you. If someone's spouse received a large pension that helped pay the bills and they went into care, would all of their pension payments then have to go towards their care?
That depends on what the pension is. There are different types of pension. So we touched on, so there is state pension that comes from the DWP. There is pension credit that comes from the DWP. I think probably what is meant here is an occupational pension or a personal pension. So something that was paid in because the pension credit and state pension are not large pensions usually. So there is so occupational pension, personal pension, or a retirement annuity. 50% of that amount can be passed on to the partner, to the spouse who is not going to the care home, so that the spouse can also has some money to survive left.
Thank you. So that's all the questions I've got. Lisa, unless you've got any others.
Yeah, I've just got a few notes on carers, care because it's Carers' Rights Week this week, so a lot of carers will be working carers, and they might want to know about their rights in employment. So they could phone up the Carers Manchester contact point, get some information there on things like flexible working arrangements, remote or hybrid working, carers leave, and the access to work scheme. These are all things that should be available to working carers. We're now getting close to the end of the webinar, so I hope you have all found the session thought-provoking and useful. And before we finish, I wanted to say a big thank you to the panelists, Una, Shane and Michael, for their contributions. And thank you to Eve for moderating the chat queries. If you have any further questions regarding anything you've heard tonight, please contact the Carers Manchester contact point. The details are in